Your feet are raw beneath the gilded dust of Rome. All day they made you walk, slow, deliberate, so the city could drink you in. Your wrists were bound with gold-plated chains, heavy enough to bruise, bright enough to look like jewelry from a distance. That was the point. The crowd didn't come to see a prisoner. They came to see a story. Rome undefeated, Rome righteous, Rome chosen by the gods. They yelled your name like it was a joke. Some shouted it wrong on purpose. Others spat. Children ran alongside the wheels of the general's chariot, laughing as if this were a festival, because that's what the triumph is. War packaged as a holiday. You keep your chin lifted anyway, the last reflex of a throne that no longer exists. Ahead, white marble blazes in the sun, laurel wreaths, incense, the Senate in their purple borders, seated like judges who have already decided the verdict. Your soldiers are gone. Your palace is ash. Your crown was taken before sunrise. Now you are the final exhibit. The procession ends where the cheering should end, too. But it doesn't. Because the triumph is only the public chapter. The part Rome engraves into stone. The part poets are paid to polish. When the last trumpets fade and the citizens go home to their wine, you are not released into silence. You are handed over, not to mercy, not to Roman law in the way schoolbooks whisper it, to rooms without windows, to men with keys, to a clerk with a wax tablet who doesn't look at your face, only at the line where your name will become a category. He moistens his stylus, asks your age like he's counting sacks of grain, then signals to two guards waiting beside a narrow stair that drops into the dark. And that's when you understand the real purpose of the parade. It wasn't meant to end your war. It was meant to begin your disappearance. No witnesses, no songs. If you're new here, subscribe, because the part historians love to summarize in one clean sentence is the part that ruins the myth. Rome called it a triumph, like it was a reward for virtue. But the triumph wasn't a victory party. It was a machine for converting living people into proof. Proof that the gods favored Rome. Proof that resistance was pointless. Proof that a queen could be reduced to an object and the city would applaud. And Rome had to finish the transaction. On paper, in chains, in silence. After the procession, captives weren't set free. They were processed, quietly, efficiently, by the same state that built roads and aqueducts. In the records, they stop being names and become entries, spoils, property, assets. A defeated king might be kept alive as a bargaining piece. A defeated queen was far more useful as a warning, because she carried symbols Rome couldn't tolerate: legitimacy, bloodline, memory. So the empire did what empires always do to symbols. It erased them. Sometimes that meant an official death, away from the crowd that had already gotten its spectacle. Sometimes it meant a living death, renamed, absorbed, reassigned, turned into household property, a diplomatic gift, a trophy that could be displayed or hidden depending on what the new master needed. Stay with me, and I'll show you what waited for captive queens after the streets went quiet. How the triumph didn't end at the Capitol, but at a doorway Rome made sure no one wrote poems about. Rome doesn't conquer only with swords. It conquers with choreography. A triumph is presented as a celebration, but it's built like an inventory. Every element has a job. The chained kings, the wagons stacked with weapons and sacred statues stolen from temples, the painted panels showing burning cities like souvenirs, the soldiers chanting rude songs behind their own commander because Rome pretends even victory needs humility. And then, at the end of the line, you. Not because you mattered least, because you mattered most. A captive queen is the perfect contradiction. You are proof that Rome can break a throne, and a reminder that the throne once existed. You are a living map of a people's loyalty. You know names, alliances, hiding places, bloodlines. You could become a banner for rebellion if anyone ever saw you as human again. So Rome makes sure the public sees you only once. At the moment you are safest, when you are surrounded by guards, framed by trumpets, and reduced to a costume in somebody else's story. Look closely at what the city does to you in that hour. It doesn't just humiliate you, it standardizes you. Your title becomes a punchline. Your language becomes noise. Your grief becomes entertainment. The crowd is trained by repetition to treat a conquered ruler the way it treats a caged animal, curious, excited, hungry. Then the procession climbs toward the Capitoline, toward Jupiter's temple, where the general will offer sacrifice and pretend the gods demanded everything that happened. The smoke rises, the prayers are recited, the laurel is displayed, and the official story closes like a door. But behind the door, another door opens. Once the parade disperses, custody changes hands. The general's glory ends, and administration begins. A different kind of power arrives. Silent men who don't cheer, who don't hate you, who simply have instructions. They lead you away from sunlight into corridors where the air smells of damp stone and old iron. You are not taken to a courtroom. There's no dramatic speech, no chance to defend yourself. Rome already performed your trial in the streets. The verdict was the applause. And because Rome is Rome, even your ending is managed as a signal. If you die, you will not die where the crowd can mourn you. If you live, you will not live where anyone can gather around you. Either way, the empire's goal is the same. Cut the thread between you and your people. Make sure no one can point and say, "There she is, our rightful queen." That's why the next stop is never a palace. It's a stairwell, a cell, a ledger, a name rewritten in a hand that doesn't tremble. Rome has many ways to erase a woman without calling it murder. Sometimes it's a rope in a place no one visits. Sometimes it's a marriage arranged like a lock. Sometimes it's the slave market, where dignity is priced by the pound. And the reason we don't hear about most of these queens afterward isn't because nothing happened. It's because what happened wasn't meant to be remembered. So before we talk about what was done to you, we have to understand the mechanism Rome used, step by step, after the cheering stopped. Here is how the triumph finishes you, the way Rome actually runs it, like a set of procedures. Step 1. Separation. The moment you are removed from the procession, you are separated from anyone who could remind you who you were. No attendants from your court, no translators you chose, no surviving relatives. Even captives from your own army are marched in different directions. Rome understands a simple truth. A queen is dangerous in groups, harmless alone. So they isolate you first, before they decide anything else. Step 2. Search and control. Before you ever see a cell, hands go over your body and your clothing with practiced suspicion. Not because they think you are a warrior, but because Rome treats every captive as a potential problem. Pins, needles, hidden cords, anything that could become a weapon or a suicide. The guards aren't cruel here. They're mechanical. They have done this before. They will do it again tomorrow. Then they change your restraints. The bright chains from the parade are for the crowd. After the parade, you get iron. Step 3. Reduction. Your ornaments are taken, even the ones that look symbolic. In Rome, symbols are assets. A crown is melted. A signet ring becomes evidence. A royal garment is stored, sold, or paraded later on a different body. This is not spite. It is standard practice. Convert authority into property. Step 4. Renaming. A clerk asks questions with the boredom of routine. Age, origin, titles, family ties. Not because he cares, but because Rome needs categories. The wax tablet is the first prison. Once your identity is written in Roman terms, the old version begins to die. Your name gets Latinized, shortened, misspelled, and then used as a label on a shelf. The clerk doesn't ask what you believe. He asks what you can be filed under. Step 5. Classification. This is the heart of it. Rome decides what you are useful for, not who you are, what you are. There are only a few boxes the state recognizes: a symbol to destroy, a hostage to keep, an asset to absorb, a trophy to distribute. A captured king might be kept alive for negotiation. A captured queen is often treated as a more delicate problem because she can outlive a general, outlive a treaty, outlive the story Rome wants the public to tell. She can become a memory with a heartbeat. So the decision is made quietly, among men whose power is invisible: officials, patrons, household heads, and the commander's circle. The triumph gave the crowd its theater. Now the elite divides the spoils. Step 6. Interrogation. Without the drama. If Rome needs information, it doesn't hold a grand hearing. It asks in rooms with bare walls. Questions come through an interpreter who edits your words as he translates them. Names of allies, names of cities, names of nobles who might pay for mercy. The goal isn't justice, it's leverage. And notice what Rome never offers: a platform. A queen with an audience is a problem. A queen with only guards is a resource. Step 7. Custody transfer. You are moved to wherever Rome can control you best. Sometimes that is a state prison. Stone steps, stale air, the sense that the city's weight is pressing down on you. Sometimes it is a guarded house owned by someone responsible. Sometimes it is a temple complex. The location matters less than the principle. You must be unreachable. No petitions, no visits, no public gaze that could turn you into a martyr. Rome loves witnesses, but only for its contracts. Your suffering is kept off stage. Your ownership is documented precisely. Step 8. The 3 exits. Exit 1. Official erasure. If Rome chooses death, it prefers endings that are tidy, deniable, and private. The city knows how to kill without making a stage of it. A queen who dies after a triumph is not meant to inspire songs. She is meant to vanish like an administrative correction, an item removed from a list. Often the timing is part of the message. The public saw you at noon in sunlight. The empire ends you at night under stone. The crowd gets spectacle. The state gets silence. Exit 2. Living disappearance. If Rome chooses to keep you alive, it does not keep you as a queen. It keeps you as a controlled resource. That means a new name, a new household, a new set of rules, and, most importantly, a new silence. You may be displayed in a patron's home as proof of status. Look what I own. Look what my connections bought me. You may be used in a diplomatic arrangement as a political lock, not a romance, your body turning into a treaty clause. You may be placed under the authority of a Roman matron, whose job is to train you into harmlessness: how to speak, when to look down, how to answer without revealing pride. Even kindness becomes a tool. Better food in exchange for compliance. Softer clothing in exchange for gratitude. Small privileges designed to teach the same lesson. You live because Rome allows it, and you will keep living only if you cooperate with your own erasure. Exit 3. Absorption into the market. And then there is the option Rome uses when it wants the fastest kind of forgetting. Sale, a price placed on a former throne, a transfer stamped, witnessed, and completed. After that, you don't belong to Rome in the abstract, you belong to a person, which means your fate stops being history and becomes domestic routine. Work, obedience, punishment, survival. You disappear into a villa, into a workshop, into a household where your past is an inconvenience and your accent is a stain. Step 9. Control of the narrative. Whichever exit is chosen, Rome applies the final rule. No competing story. Letters are blocked. Languages are suppressed. Your children, if any are captured, are separated early because nothing preserves a dynasty like descendants. The details of your case are kept vague on purpose. The crowd remembers your face for a day. The Senate remembers you as a line item. Your people remember you as a rumor. And if you ever try to speak, if you try to tell anyone what happened after the laurel wreaths and trumpets, Rome has a solution for that too. Relocate you, reassign you, bury you in someone else's household where your words cannot spread. Because the triumph was never only about humiliating you, it was about teaching the entire empire a lesson. Even a queen can be processed. In the next section, we follow that process to its most chilling point. The moment Rome chooses which kind of disappearance you will become and who gets to profit from it. Now comes the part Rome rarely put on marble. Because once you've been filed, classified, and hidden, the empire can choose any ending it wants and still claim it was order. There are days when a triumph ends with sacrifice on the hill, and the crowd thinks the story is finished. But in the lower city, beneath the stone, a different ritual waits, the quiet disposal of a person who has already been turned into proof. Sometimes Rome chooses the cleanest warning. Death. Offstage. Not the theatrical kind, the bureaucratic kind. A guard arrives with a single instruction. No speeches, no audience, no chance for your people to make you a symbol. You are brought down narrow steps into air that tastes like old water. A door closes, a rope appears, and afterward, your name survives only as a footnote, executed after the triumph, as if the state simply corrected an imbalance. But Rome doesn't always kill. Often it does something colder. It keeps you alive long enough to make you disappear slowly. This is where the machine becomes personal. You are assigned to a household, not a home, an apparatus. A Roman matron becomes your supervisor. She does not beat you in public. She trains you in private. Which words are allowed, which memories are dangerous, how long you can speak before silence is required, which emotions must be performed, gratitude, humility, relief. And if you resist, Rome doesn't need to break you with violence. It can break you with time. Days become identical, the same courtyard, the same tasks, the same guards who learn your habits the way stable hands learn a horse. Your world shrinks until you stop thinking in the language you grew up with, until even your own name feels like a story someone told you about another woman. Then there is the most profitable ending: absorption. A captive queen is valuable not only as a warning, but as an ingredient. Rome has always known how to digest what it conquers. Your jewels become Roman gifts. Your sacred objects become Roman decor. And your bloodline can be used to stitch loyalty into a new map. A marriage can be arranged that is really a lock, a defeated dynasty fastened to a Roman patron, children raised with Latin prayers so they inherit Rome's memory instead of yours. People later call this integration. The conquered call it erasure with better lighting. And here is the twist most viewers miss. The triumph doesn't punish only you. It punishes everyone who might remember you. Your attendants are separated because witnesses preserve identity. Your letters are blocked because language preserves allegiance. Your children, if they are taken, are renamed early because a dynasty dies fastest when its next generation can't pronounce its own past. That's why so many captive queens vanish in the record right after the parade. Not because nothing happened, because everything happened away from the page. Rome didn't need to hide the triumph. It needed to hide what the triumph was for. It needed the city to see you once and never see you again. And sometimes Rome makes the ending deliberately confusing, so even later writers can't agree on what really happened. An Eastern queen might be marched in chains behind an emperor's chariot, and then the record fractures. One version ends in execution. Another claims she was spared, relocated, dressed in Roman silk, and watched until she became harmless. That uncertainty isn't an accident. A clear martyr is dangerous. A blurred fate is controllable. Even rulers who chose death rather than capture get repurposed as Roman proof. They knew resistance was over. Rome wins twice, once in the street and once in the silence afterward. So when people talk about Roman triumphs, notice what they celebrate. They celebrate the arch, the laurel, the clean line of the parade route, the idea that victory was public, noble, and complete. But the triumph was never complete at the capital. It finished in places Rome did not decorate. It finished in a ledger where a queen became an entry, in a household where a name was replaced, in a stairwell where sunlight stopped, in a rule that said memory itself could be treated like contraband. That is what Rome did best. It didn't just defeat you, it managed what you would mean afterward. A captive queen is dangerous because she carries a before and after in her body. She is living evidence that Rome can be resisted, and therefore she must be converted into a different kind of evidence, evidence that resistance ends in erasure. So the next time you see triumphal imagery, statues, coins, marble reliefs, ask yourself a simple question. Where did the queens go after the cheering? Because the answer is the real triumph, not the parade, the disappearance. And once you see that mechanism, the myth collapses. If you want, in the next section, we'll follow one captive queen's path through the system, step by step, until you can hear the moment the door closes and history pretends nothing was behind it. Rome conquered endings. It decided who deserved a monument and who deserved a blank space. And blank spaces are powerful because they make the audience assume there was nothing worth recording. But there was. There was paperwork. There were keys. There were choices made by men who never stepped into the sunlight of the parade. The triumph you remember is the version that can be shown to children. The version that happened after is the one that built the empire.